Welcome, 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 everybody. You're in the right place. My name is Ariana Brown, and you are attending the virtual launch event number 1 for my debut poetry collection, We Are Owed. I meant to hold up the other one that doesn't have my sticky notes on the side of it. I got this in the mail this week. It's gorgeous and beautiful, and I have a lot of really big feelings about it. And I'm so glad that you showed up here tonight with me and some of my dearest friends to celebrate this book finally being out in the world. I can't tell you enough how grateful I am that you're here with me virtually with us. Yes, and please utilize the chat. I'm so happy to see all these familiar names. I can't see your faces, but I can see your names coming through. Please feel free to keep interacting with us. You know, this, I would have loved for this to be an in-person event to really get to feel everybody's energy in the space. So as much as we can, I would love to try and replicate that feeling in the chat. So please feel free to engage with us. I'm gonna bring on my two friends, Lois Gallo and Sasha Banks, who are some of my favorite people in the entire world, who are here to celebrate with me tonight. Hello, everyone.
Hi.
How are we
I
feeling
just wish I
today?
had like some air horns or something. I just need like a thing to make some noise. You know what I mean?
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Hi, Janae.
Hi, Javi. Hi, Eris. Hi, Paul. Hi, Joy. Hi, Claudia.
Hi, Joy. Oh, wow. That's odd. This is awesome.
Look at all these amazing folks who are here. Let's
I
go.
know.
I'm
Listen,
super
we were
hyped.
so worried that people weren't going to show up. And look.
I was. Well, you know, I don't know about y'all. I feel very like tired of Zoom events, which is why this is not a Zoom event. Just
Yeah.
the amount of like mental and physical stamina it takes to keep yourself upright and have your camera on during an event. You know, like I really do want to show support to people, and I also really want to lay down most of the time.
True.
So that's why tonight's event is a YouTube live event. You don't even have the option to turn your camera on. You can be at whatever position and whatever room in your house you want to be participating with us. Yeah, I want to give a few minutes just for folks to kind of like trickle in. So if you need to take care of any of your needs, get some food, some snacks. I'm not going to keep you here all night, you know. We're going to be here from 7 to 9, and then we're out of here because we got other stuff to do and we have sleep to do. It's very crucial. Lois and Sasha, how are you feeling today?
So excited about this. I'm so excited. I'm also just like I'm excited to like have the copy of this book in my hands because the cover art. I just feel like we need to talk about the cover art. Or unless you want to save that for later, but I just like so hype about the way that the book looks as well. Like just so many beautiful choices were made. And you know, I love a picture. I love it. I love a thing. I love
Amen.
something. So I'm just like, it's like a beautiful thing. I just can't wait to actually hold. Yes, the cover art is incredible. It really is beautiful. Who is the cover artist again?
The cover artist is Desiree Vaniesia. She is an incredible. She's actually based in Dallas, Sasha.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, she's an incredible Black woman painter, illustrator, and teacher. And this was on her Instagram, this image, and I just kept coming back to it and thinking about it and coming back to it and thinking about it. And it just stuck with me for a long time. And I feel like when you have that kind of relationship to an image, that's when you know this is the one.
Right.
This is the one. Right. But yeah, I definitely feel like it would not be complete without Desiree's piece. So thank you for shouting that out. I'm going to put her name in the chat as well so folks can
absolutely
check out her work.
Yeah, the cover art for We Are Owed and also the cover art for Sana Sana was also really beautiful too. So God, you make some good cover art choices, Ariana Brown.
Thank you. No, I do what I can.
Beautiful.
What about you, Lois? How are you feeling tonight?
I mean, speaking of though, Sasha Banks, I'm curious, where does one get your book now? Like, how do we get our hands literally on your book?
Oh, I actually I have like a Big Cartel link that's in my bio on Instagram.
Nice.
So that is where, if anybody's interested, yeah, that's where my book lives now.
Amazing. And
your Instagram handle is King2_Sasha.
King2_Sasha. Yeah.
Ariana, what about you?
Where can folks get my book?
Mm-hmm.
You know, Lois, asking all the really important questions tonight. Really appreciate that. I'm going to post the link in the chat. There it is. That's where you can grab it. I do not have physical copies of my book. So many people have asked, and I know it's you know, for those of us who come from especially slam backgrounds, you know, where folks are just having books and chapbooks on them, I really appreciate that. I do not. These are the only copies of the book that I have. You can only get it on the website. So I'm not dodging you. It's not that I don't like you. I just don't have any personally on me, but I do want you to have it.
And Ariana Brown, I took that personally. Yeah.
You did not. I don't know why you're lying to these people.
Oh, mercy.
All right. I think now is a good time for us to go ahead and get started. We have a good amount of people live with us. Yeah. Are y'all feeling good? Is it cool if we get started?
Yeah.
Let's do it.
Okay. Woo. Oh, hey, Uncle Derek. So many people that love me and have been with me for a long time are here tonight, and that feels so good. It feels so good. I'm excited. Okay. So yeah, welcome everybody to the book launch for We Are Owed. We're here for 2 hours to hear some poems and talk to each other. Hey, Lindsay. Hey, Vincente. We're going to hear some beautiful poems from Sasha, some beautiful poems, and maybe a song from Lois, depending on how they are feel. Okay, all right, yeah. No. It was. I was trying to read the facial cues and the gestures. You're so quiet tonight. I don't know what's happening.
All I'm saying is, let's not get the people way too high. You know.
Okay. Okay. So we'll see what happens. That's what's happening. Got it. Okay. Regardless, we're going to hear from Sasha Banks and Lois Gallo, and then I will read some selections from We Are Owed. And after that, we'll have time for a short Q&A. So if there are any questions that come to you during any of the performances tonight, you can put the questions in the chat, or you can save them till the end, and we can kind of have a little dialogue that way. And as well, Sasha and Lois, if you have any questions that come to you, or, you know, memories and thoughts that you'd like to share, feel free to add those as well. But let's go ahead and get started. We are going to hear from Sasha Banks first and foremost. I always have to say both of your names because it feels really important to me personally. I don't know how other people feel. But Sasha Banks, in addition to being a dear friend of mine, we actually started writing our manuscripts together.
We did.
We had a folder on Google Drive many moons ago that had a lot of the early poems that would become We Are Owed and America Mine, Sasha's debut poetry collection, which came out last year and is fantastic. Yes, jazz hands, everything. Right. All of the love, all of the things. So it only felt fitting to have Sasha here and part of the book release, because she saw so many of these early poems, and as someone who has known me and worked alongside me for a really long time. So in addition to all of those things, Sasha Banks is a Pushcart nominated poet whose work has been published or is forthcoming in The Atlantic, Vanity Fair, PBS NewsHour, and others. She received her MFA at Pratt Institute. She is a 2019 Rhode Island Writers Colony Fellow and the creator of Poets for Ferguson. She is the author. She is the author of America Mine, period. And without further ado, please join me in welcoming Sasha Banks.
Oh my God. Lois, enough. You know what? Can you mute just your face? Just your facial expressions. No, please don't ever stop. Thank you so much, Ariana, for letting me be a part of this. I'm so excited to be a part of this because I'm so proud of you, and I'm so proud of We Are Owed. Yeah, I know that there are so many pieces in here that I can't wait to be like, I remember that. I remember reading that. I remember a draft of that. Because even reading just like some of the drafts, or like hearing you talk about like some of the conceptual things that you had in mind, I remember getting chill. I remember, like, I have a visceral memory of, like, a physical memory of that. So I just am really excited about how all of this kind of like came together into one new piece of work. So I'm so excited for you, and I'm just going to keep telling you congratulations all night, because that's it. You.
Thank you, Sasha.
You're so welcome. I'm going to read a few poems today. Some of them are going to come from my book, and then some of them are just kind of like draft things that don't have a home yet. And some of them, I don't even really know what they mean yet. Maybe y'all could tell me. But anyway, I'm going to share a few of those. And let's see. I'm just looking for a good place to start. I'm going to start with this one here. This poem doesn't have a title yet. So let's see. Okay. This poem doesn't have a title yet, so the title is untitled. Okay. Some have named my legs exquisite. The eyes of many have spied their curving brown under my lifting dress in summer. They marvel at their speed, the way they make leaving look like dancing. At night, they stumble in the hallway, haunting down the stairs and stopping at the front door. In the middle of the night, I'm forced to drag the rest of my body across the floor, descending each step before climbing my unattended legs and corralling them back to bed. I fear the day they fling themselves from the kitchen window and into my neighbor's yard. I inherited my legs from my grandmother, Jean, a water diviner from Missouri. Her mother had thieved them from a storefront window, a wedding gift intended for the sculptress's daughter. The legs stood poised on a wooden pedestal in the attic until my grandmother's 16th birthday. When she married, they carried her swiftly out the front door in the middle of the afternoon, her 5 children swinging from her bare breasts as she ran clear to California. I cross my legs and dream of rest. Okay, I have like this like weird prosy thing that I wanted to read, but it is not finished and I don't know what it means. So we're not gonna even attempt that right now. Okay, so the title of this poem is "It's So Gross You Just Have to Describe It. My experience of this nation is not that it dislikes those who want to revise or that it has disdain for those who want to revise. This nation attempts to kill directly or over a long period of time folks who want to revise. But then what it does is it takes credit for the revision that the reviser did in spite of it. It murdered people for attempting to revise a national narrative of what American exceptionalism was. It killed and murdered and maimed, and then refused that killing, murdering, and maiming, and then it wanted to take credit for it, even though it killed, maimed, and murdered. How is it radical to be like, we have to assess how we got here today, and we must talk about the ingredients of yesterday if we're going to talk about any shit tomorrow? Or this nation's sin is its commitment to being the same, after Kiese Layman and Ron Wilkerson. My eyes eat everything, and their swallowing has made me a woman who only understands youth in theory. ingesting the inevitabilities of this world the way the notion of rain lives in the marrow of an elder's hip. It starts simply with sight, then blinking in the sharp curvature of American time. The eye bends and the body surely follows, eventually a country. I sleep and my eyes swim in the thickly natal darkness of imagined freedom. And then this one is called, I wrote this one, this is the only thing I could write last year. It's called I Thought I Could Wish for Trouble and It Would Not Come After Adjua grieves. An open mouth begets all futures. Ours will begin with a death, the signature blood of ending. I was just a woman twisting her hair in the kitchen, suddenly daydreaming of a row of drinking glasses dangling off the edge of a dining room table, obsessed with the slowing second before the sound. In December, I stood in front of a US map, confessing to it, I don't want a country, only the land beneath it, and watched it fall to dizzy pieces. In March, everyone I loved hid their bones in houses. Death screamed faceless in the night, and no one slept in April. My body is heavy, forgetting about seasons even as the earth heals without us. Even though my body weaves some new trauma I cannot begin to unravel until it is the garment I wear under my clothes for the rest of my life. I want to hold my lover in May. My trembling hands know he is missing from me. I chew a watermelon rind and wonder if his body has begun to mourn my living flesh. I have craved endings in my sleep while resting on the supposition of children, a well body, some vindicated heart unscathed in the midst of a chaos I have called to me like a vulture to my steady arm. I am not God, and I am no patriot, just seething and exhausted. And that is all it takes to wish for trouble. The trouble is we are all reaping. And I think I have two more. I think I have time for two more. So these are going to come from my book here. So this first one that I'm going to read out of the book is called Sasha Fels' The Wildwood, which is kind of an older piece. Okay. The poplars know how to hold death. Keep it still, but I'm swinging the axe. They're all around the city, eyeless and staring even to the dirt under my nails. Peopling the bayous, hungry. Look. Last night was that dream again, me and Jesus pulling nails out of our feet at the lip of the Mississippi Delta. Somewhere Coretta is calling for Martin to come down from a sycamore. He's just a boy here, but he weeps and the sky is ripped at the belly. They shifted shapes, but I know. The rocking chair, the banister, nightstand, porch steps, vanity, I know, and I'm swinging the axe. Well, don't laugh. I couldn't have been the only Black child who didn't trust the forest, who saw it from her dark window turning itself into rows of small coffins, a silence like that all the time smirking with no mouth, knew my terror and loved it. But watch me now. I'm swinging this axe. I come back for all of this summer and give my flesh to it, undressed in its hot breath. Watch. Just steady on this axe I'm swinging. I run through this clan of cypresses whirling their lassos above their branches. They want to make me their strangest fruit, but look how the axe humbles the wood to a stacked history of its noosed unions to this skin, a clean cut, and now so much firewood. And the last piece I'm going to read is called America Mine. The spit upon this country's flag is mine, and I do not weep at it. Consider the twisted shape of grief about the mouth upon learning the beast under the bed has always been your country. Careful, citizen. This nation will name you daughter while its tongue sucks the muscle from every dark body you had loved to the edge of this vanished second. I let the rage be like water this time. Drinking and drinking until my darkness marries my eyes to blindness and I am led by the ghosts still awake in the soil, still thirsty from below. The fear is under my heel now. There are multitudes in my third ribbon. We are not asking anymore. Do you see us now? This is the last kindness. We will have your sweat and dress you in your own curses, oh country. What I mean to say is, all the living after this will be the vengeance. Thank you.
Thank you, Sasha Banks. Oh my
Thank
gosh.
you.
One of my favorite things.
I, for one, speak
Uh-huh.
for everyone here and say, I am stressed.
Oh my God, Lois, get some water.
Jesus, I need the divine to intervene because what?
Oh my God.
My God. Sasha Banks, my God.
Lois Io.
And I gotta hand it to you. I gotta hand it to the both of y'all. Y'all see Nation. Hey, the way you all, hey, yeah, hey. Wow, Sasha Banks.
Thank you. I did want to share one, well, I have several memories about some very special times with Ariana. I didn't want to reach for this, but I have to. So we did Rust Belt in
Oh God.
20, I don't know what,
15, I think.
2015 maybe. For those who may not know what Rust Belt is, it's a slam competition, but it's like a pickup team thing. You kind of, you don't have to compete to build your team. You pick who you want. You do a pickup team of people that you want. And it was me, Ariana, Jackie Germain, and Hanif Abdurraqib, and we were all together in Rockford, Illinois.
Thank God for second place.
And we thought we were going to have a really wonderful time, and we were all wrong. And
That's so wrong.
we were all deeply wrong. But I think there was a lot that happened, a lot of terrible, racist, awful, nasty things that happened. But I think the thing that I remember the most is lots of conversation about Hanif's obsession for like yogurt covered raisins.
Craisins.
Yeah.
It was so sad we didn't want any of his.
He
He
never
wanted to share with
them,
us so
but he was
badly.
always offering them because he is a kind person and just the salt of the earth. But also, we spent a lot of time together. It rained a lot after we decided to pull out of this competition. We were still there for a couple of days, and we were there with Jackie Germain, and we stayed in the hotel pretty much the rest of our time there. We didn't really go anywhere, but we laughed a lot. I feel like we even though the weekend did not end the way that we intended it to, I feel like that was the time that at least the three of us, me, Jackie, and Ariana, got the closest. And so I've just always been really grateful for what a shit show that turned out to be, because I feel like I just feel like we wouldn't have had that time to get closer the way that we did. Like I feel like we were still supposed to be there, even if we weren't supposed to compete, you know? So yeah.
I feel that deeply. I also forget about Rust Belt deeply.
Yes,
And so when
I'm
you
sure
pull
you
the
do.
memory out, I was in shock. Okay.
Right.
On Juneteenth weekend.
On
No less.
Juneteenth weekend,
Weekend.
2015. Wow.
Yeah. It was a rough time all around.
It was awful.
So I'm an immigrant, but I hear like the law is you're not supposed to be anti-Black that weekend, like the whole weekend, right? What happened?
People couldn't
White
do it for a
people.
whole weekend. White people is what happened.
There you go.
Rockford, Illinois is what happened, Lois.
The consistency, honestly.
It's the consistency for me.
Yeah.
Wow.
Oh my goodness. Thank you so much, Sasha, for kicking us off tonight.
Absolutely.
It's always such a pleasure to hear your work. Such a joy. Also, I think, Lois, will you come to all of our events from now on? Please.
Hey, you know what's interesting? It's a treat for me. This kind of stress is a treat for me. For free, I get to come for. Come on now, please.
Oh my lord, we are going to hear from Lois Gallo next. They have instructed me not to read their bio, so I'm just going to let you know that Lois Gallo is. I mean, Sasha and Lois are two of my favorite people on the planet at any given time. I have known Lois since she was a youth poet back in the day. We went to school together. We were roommates for a year. We were on the team together that competed at the Collegiate National Poetry Slam in 2014 and took the title. Lois is
Started from the
fantastic.
bottom.
Started from the literal bottom. Was that Austin, Texas?
And now we're here.
I cannot tell you how much of a blessing it is to receive Lois's work. So I'm going to let Lois's work speak for itself. Please join me in welcoming Lois Gallo.
Thank you so much, Ariana. I mean, I'm really grateful that of all your incredibly talented friends, that you picked me.
Stop.
Knowing I write
Mhm.
only 3 poems a year. Like, you know this, and still said, you know what, Lois, I invite you. And I'm honestly, it's my honor to be here. No, speaking of that apartment that we lived in, I've been very present. I've been very, very present with how bad it was. You know? That's in my body this past few days. I'm in the process of moving, trying to get, a home and all that. And I've been thinking of just how housing insecure we have been in our lifetime. So one of the really amazing things, though, about that place is walking distance away from the HEB, which I thought was an amazing treat. For those who don't know what HEB is, it is... How do I find the language?
I describe it as the greatest place on earth.
Okay, easily.
The only corporation I stand.
Right? and shout out to all my communists in the space. It's just y'all don't understand, though, how this one corporation is fresh tortillas. Are you kidding me? It's amazing. So I've always viewed HEB, and I still do, as this really, really it is very much a safe haven for me that I can peruse through these the space. But that one HEB, I don't know how, but a white supremacist, a ambassador of hate, managed to find his way in these aisles of a whole sanctuary, and I don't know why, but this poem for me, I associate very closely with the living situation we're in, and So I'm gonna read this. Just background is during this time, the time that I wrote this piece, we were still living together, and it's wild to still think about it and reflect on it. It's called Shopping While Black. Now, if HEB is sanctuary, then those low prices are scripture. I'm just gonna assume everybody has already said amen. Today, I have a coupon in one hand and a praise in another, and all my black is making ceremony out of this amen. A white woman on today, with a bedazzled cross around her neck, spoke with all the deep antebellum South and enough evangelical grit to muffle my holy. She fixed her lips to say to me, I thought you were doing gang signs. And I guess it's funny. When white tongues paint my skin savage and remind me the God in my limbs was not birthed to celebrate bargains, let alone conduct the heavens, the only thing I can think of is shopping metaphors, like this life is too taxing, or a mother cleans her daughter's spilled body on aisle 9, or maybe in the next life, I'll come as the finest topsoil and blossom into produce, or I see ghosts in this warehouse, or can one order caskets online, or funerals are expensive. So that one really did happen. That really did happen. And she had one of those like, I'm not shitting you. She had denim on denim on denim. You know what I mean? And then the cross that looks like it was bought at Bucky's. It was a mess. It was a hot mess.
Wow.
Right, that part.
Wow, that's a lot going on.
A lot. A lot. And you're fixing your pasty, cracked lips.
Oh,
speak to me.
Tasty and cracked. My.
Please mind your house. Your own house.
My God, on today. Oh my God.
Hey, quick shout out to all the communists, to all of the folks out there fighting the fight. Ariana, it's difficult to not be in poetry spaces and not have folks who are working really hard to change systems. And one of the reasons why I admire the both of y'all, the way in which y'all see nation, the way in which y'all unpack the history of empire. It's marvelous. It's, my God. And in a way, this poem is trying to do something similar in like unpacking the mythology of this nation. It's called Politics at God's Funeral. These are the parables taught at the table of self-proclaimed prophets and messiahs. 1, blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the American dream. 2, blessed are those who mourn, for their children will inherit the same cry. 3, blessed are the meek, for they will inherit nothing, and nothing so big they will pray to it. 4, blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will feast on other souls. 5, blessed are the merciful, for they will be shown judgment by a group of their peers. 6, blessed are the pure in heart, for they will never see our evils. 7, blessed are the peacemakers, for they will kill in the name of God. 8, blessed are those who are persecuted because of righteousness, for their blood will stain pretty, but will eventually dry up and begin to smell forgotten. Politics at God's funeral, the refrain. And maybe the Lord said, show me your nasty women and I will show you my image. And I will show you Black women mistaken for a bark. Or maybe the Lord said, show me your water protectors and I will show you your saviors and your obsession with crucifixion and how a pierced side of something holy bleeds crude oil, welcoming the Sabbath, signaling the end. Or maybe the Lord said, show me your American dream and I will show you a myth. Show me your white Jesus and I will show you a myth. Look at your mountains of things built on shifting sand, following oppression into a narrow tomb. Or maybe the Lord said, show me your songs about joy or your psalms about love, and I will show you why I haven't swallowed the earth yet. Ariana, you asked me to sing. Hey, you know,
I'm listening.
I see Eris Kane is in the house, and she is an amazing singer. And hey, I always imagine if I don't hit a note,
Lois, we not those people.
Anyway, y'all, my mixtape is never coming out.
Stop.
Go away. Go away.
Hold me in this space.
Who asked you?
I just love that folks have come in. It's like, y'all can find my book, you know what I'm saying, on my Instagram, blah, blah. Like, Ariana's got the whole book, and I'm over here like, please don't look for me. I'm begging.
Lois said, I'll see you when I see you.
Or I won't.
Or I won't.
Right.
And don't perceive me either, please. I'm begging, please. Especially if I don't hit these notes, okay? So, don't you know, talking about a revolution, it sounds like a whisper Don't you know? Talking about a revolution, it sounds like a whisper. I was supposed to read a poem after that, and then the poem left me, so it wasn't meant to be. So we'll keep it pushing. Look, we'll keep it pushing. I love that song, by the way. Go check it out. Tracy Chapman is a goat. And I've been revisiting it frequently nowadays because it does feel like when organizing and seeing folks organize, like we're going after giant things. But what I've come to realize is even the tiniest movement, the tiniest action does contribute to this larger big old thing that we're trying to undo. Anyway, I'm gonna leave you all with this. Ariana, at some point, I'd love to chat more about this piece because I don't think we've gotten a chance to talk deeply. I sent it to you a while back, but like, I don't think we got a chance to talk about it. In Memory of Royal Murderers is the title. So here we go. I've been dreaming about the death of famous colonizers lately. I've literally been laughing out loud at the thought of King Leopold choking on his own vomit the very first day he sets foot in the Congo. Or how Cecil Rhodes dies while taking a shit after eating a rotten mango. Or Churchill falls down the stairs. Well, he breaks his neck while falling down the stairs after being startled by the sound of his own very aggressive fart echoing through Buckingham Palace. For those who haven't been, the acoustics in that bitch, just mwah. Then I would think, no. Even accidental deaths, though they rattle my 5'3" frame with mirth, are too merciful. King Leopold should have choked on every limb he commanded be severed. Imagine every bald fist amputated, lodging itself in his throat, every finger cut, trying to claw and gnaw its way out his trachea. Rhodes should have been trampled, crushed by the very land he commanded be pillaged. Imagine the Ndembele people summoning a magic to their feet when they first saw the British approaching. See how they danced a dance that would shake and split the earth and sky, the dirt swallowing Cecil whole and at once grinding him with diamond teeth. Now, Churchill should have died a very loud death. In an attempt to abscond, the night would refuse to cover him. The Mau Mau would find him forsaken and sound every horn. They would have paraded his shame across the fields before unraveling his pallid skin among the trees. His blood alone would have quenched the land's thirst for any flesh for millennia. I spent hours thinking about this, hours. I imagine the smell of dry blood on freshly tilled soil, the chirping of crickets interrupted by the sound of gagging in a quiet room, the snapping of bone and fiber. I am obsessed and I am satisfied until I realize this language of violence that I revel in is not even my own. Even an ocean away, I still speak in an old savage cadence, learned from strangers who came with guns, with whips, and a merciless God. See, along with their borders, their baptismal names, their churches, I inherited this language too. So I am going to leave you all with that. Ariana Brown.
Thank you, Lois.
I love you. I love you so much. And I love, honest to God, I love both of you.
I love you too, Lois.
And I can't wait to hear you read, Ariana.
Thank you. You know, I was just thinking, I know you don't want to be perceived, so I'm going to move my face over to the big screen. Thank you for that, Lois. I was just remembering, I don't know who is with us tonight who was living in Austin during the time that Lois and I were living in Austin. But when I left Austin in 2016, I gave a reading at Resistencia bookstore on the east side in East Austin And the reading that I gave that day was of a very early draft of what would become We Are Owed. I had been working on it for a year before I left to go into my MFA to finish it. And I wanted to have like a grand goodbye to Austin, Texas, because I was not coming back. Let's be clear about that. But I wanted to share what I had been working on with everybody. And Lois was one of the opening performers at that reading. And they did sing then. A whole beautiful, wonderful set for us. But I was thinking about that today because Lois is also joining me to celebrate the final version of that piece of writing. Years later, that was in 2016. 2016. It is now 2021, 5 years later, after I'd already been working on it for a year. So it's been 6 years total that I've been working on this book. And Sasha and Lois have been with me from the very beginning. So it only felt right to invite them with me here today. It's interesting because I feel like a lot of times when people talk about my work or write about my work, they try to put me in conversation with like non-Black, Latinx, or Mexican American writers, especially folks from the Southwest. And Black women like Sasha and Lois have been an integral part of my writing experience and also of my life, you know? And so I was very intentional about how I curated these launch events because I want you to receive the work in its proper context. You know, I can never control how people are going to read it, but the only thing I control is how it's presented, right? So we are being very intentional tonight with everything. I'm so excited. You have no idea how long these poems have just been Google Docs and Word documents that I've been staring at on my computer with no idea how it would look printed. I just got this on Tuesday, okay? I'm still getting used to it. But I feel really grateful. What's up, Lois?
Some virtual hearts out there for Ariana tapping the mic and saying, "I am a Negro." Like, I wanna talk to other Negroes. I love that. I love that.
Period. Emphasize _ Oh my goodness. So, you know, hopefully if you're here, you know me or you know who I am. You know, I'm not going to do like a whole introduction, but I will say We Are Owed is a book that is a lot about my life growing up in Texas and different parts of Texas, and how my personal experiences interacting with people in Texas and Mexico, as well as my ethnic studies degrees that I got in undergrad, have informed my understanding of race and racialization as it relates to Blackness and Mexicanness, whatever those things are. So that's what a lot of the book is kind of looking at. I'm going to read a bunch of poems. Part of me wants to ask if you're ready, but the question really is, am I ready?
Oh, okay.
I'm going to start with the very first poem in the book. It's called At the End of the Borderlands. We need new origins. Countries are killing everyone I love. From my cousin's lips, a wish for my safety. From my curandera's hands, rituals for healing. I simmered rosemary and drank its tea, grew my hair thick as a plague, spoke poems till my throat blistered and waned and still could not curse colonizers enough to undo their work. No one I know has enough money to live, yet asks if I've eaten. Before day's end, we feed each other our Blackness, grow full from offering, our many tongues, studies, compassion, our wilderness and names. We run the length of country, reddening our feet, come to our own ends to face ourselves. What will we leave in our wake? Who we are now is our responsibility, our empty pockets, our humility or shame. Culture alone will not save us. Who are you? without your country? What would you give? Would you fight for those you don't love, to whom you are indebted?
Thank you so much for coming, everyone.
That's it. I just feel like y'all need to really just get this book off the strength of that one line. Okay. Joy already said it. Joy said the line of the year is, "We need new origins. Countries are killing everyone I love." That, buy the book, period. The end. Thank you. Good night. That's it.
Sasha Banks, that's the first line.
I'm saying.
I love y'all.
Oh my God.
May I continue?
There's more. There's more.
No, you can't continue. No, you can't. No, please don't ever stop.
Oh Lord. There is like some poems in here that used to be called something else. Now they are called There Are Güeros, and then there is me. So for anyone unfamiliar, a güero, wait a minute, do I explain it? A güero is like a word in Spanish that we use to refer to white people, usually to like white Mexicans. So there are güeros, and then there is me. The first day of first grade, I found 3 pencils and a set of hands in my hair. I'm sure something was whispered in Spanish, language in which there was no word to describe me with grace. Let's play a game called My School So Mexican. The entire 3rd grade was required to sing and dance a Selena medley for our parents. My School So Mexican. We sold hot Cheetos with nacho cheese at fundraisers. My School So Mexican. Principal took my mama to the office, told her my hair was outlandish. My School So Mexican. I'm the only one who looked like me. Güero is not to be confused with gringo, the first meaning Spanish descended, meaning pale, meaning a Mexican who is white. The latter meaning American, usually white, although one can be both güero and gringo at the same time. You can have a tía güera, or a cousin everyone calls güerito. You can have a professor who asks who in your class has been called gringa by their cousins in Mexico. You can have neutral words to describe white people, just not to describe yourself. Negrita, from my cousin. Playing loteria, I teach you to match word and picture, and your eyes dry from the stare. We inhale the colors. Winking back at us, they taunt. They will never give us a name like theirs. Your golden hand hovers, a nervous onlooker, and I fear you offer your heart to this language. Run your tongue along its teeth, looking for light. I lean into your shoulder to stop the sun from leaking between us. You and I are not mirages. Neither are our ghosts. To survive here, mija, I work on the words, making a list of everything we are owed. This next poem starts with a quote from Marta Menchaca. Black slaves first arrived in Mexico in 1519 as part of the Panfilo Narvaez expedition. It is uncertain whether they assisted Hernán Cortés in the conquest of the Aztec Empire. We do know that Esteban, one of the slaves introduced by Narvaez, participated in the first expedition to set foot in Texas. This poem is called Don't Know Nobody from Ellis Island. I had a friend named Guillermo in elementary, and for years, our teacher decided I was his tutor. Dark, sea-washed temple of bronze, his name with 2 most difficult letters, Guillermo's hair a torch, thick, and going straight up. I never thought Guillermo could be my brother, my interest. When I say friend, I mean he was someone who sat next to me in class, bothered my conversations, no context for showing up. I mean, it's a miracle I remembered his name. And Guillermo was the darkest Mexican I'd ever met, and my exiled hair was a harbor we both could have moored in, and I did not know how to lift my silent lip and smile. I only knew he was annoying, and I memorized the lightning color of Jacob's hair instead. Jacob with a thin lip and small ankles. I did not see Esteban, prince of conquest, pouring sand into my blood. Esteban, who survived the ocean twice and left behind no images of himself, instead was forced to give the Spaniards a key to the world above the river, and this crossing is where I begin. Were your ancestors immigrants or slaves? Did they read the signs, no niggers, Mexicans, or dogs allowed? Were they assumed to be rich? Were they rich? Did they own themselves? Did they have to work for their freedom? In the ancient lands our feet kissed with blood call us back to the soil, saying, remember. And I know now the Statute of Liberty, which embraced the necks of Esteban's skinfolk and draped the bodies of his descendants across Huizaches in Texas. And Esteban did not live long enough to have children, and the soil swallowed so many bodies. And myself and Guillermo spoke as little as possible. Suffice it to say, we have a history, and our teachers said Guillermo's name like the name of an exile. When I was writing a lot of these poems, I was thinking about the history that I was learning in my Mexican American Studies courses when I was at UT Austin. There was so much about how Mexico became a country that I was interested in. I was so familiar, I think, with US history that I didn't, before taking those courses, I didn't have an understanding of how conquest and slavery and all of the things that go into building a nation. I didn't have an idea of what that looked like in a Mexican context, right? Like I think in the US, we tend to think of Mexico as this like country of color, country full of people of color. And it wasn't until diving into the history that it becomes very clear that most nation states are invested in white supremacy, right? Like require it in order to exist. And so there's so much about like the particular histories that I was studying as Mexico is moving through periods of conquest, independence, revolution, all of those things. When in 2016, actually right before I left Austin, I did a study abroad in Mexico City. And this is one of the poems that I wrote during that study abroad. It talks about Templo Mayor, which was a holy site that Hernan Cortés and his men desecrated after they conquered the Aztec Empire. They took the pieces of the temple and they built a gigantic cathedral on top of it. And you can go see it now in Mexico City in the Zócalo. It's the largest European building on this side of the Atlantic Ocean. A division of gods. While visiting Templo Mayor in Mexico City, I reckon, walking the same land Cortés did, walked, tried to own. In the shadow of his cathedral, I shudder. Templo Mayor is now a museum. Are there records of Black people visiting plantations and crying? No history is interchangeable. I'm grasping. Templo Mayor is open 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. today. What makes people want to tour the end of something? Archaeologists had to break the temple walls in order to learn more about them, fracturing further violence. Across from the cathedral, someone sells Aztec designs on t-shirts. No mention of genocide, spiritual or otherwise, so everyone runs their fingers along the tourist attraction. The cathedral's holier house waits its turn to sink, and my classmate remarks on the tour guide's good English. I enter the cathedral, so I cannot be afraid of it, but only after returning to the temple. And I do not touch the stones, each volcanic rock carried by hand to the construction, each stone split by European hand and thrust into the cathedral. I don't know if you understand the birth of nations. Everything old is made to look new or gone.
All right, so I'm gonna need what? Y'all don't understand. You don't understand though. folks don't understand what they're witnessing. Come on. And Ariana, I mean this. Folks in the United States are robbed, and which is one of the, which is makes your kind of observation and the kind of observation you and Sasha Banks do a miracle. People don't get to witness the violence of nations, so like to put it into words, come on.
I mean, I feel like that's something that I learned a lot from you, Lois.
What?
I don't know why you look surprised. You were in those same Black Studies courses with me in undergrad talking about African history.
Yeah, you know what? For me, it seems normal to be constantly critiquing the violence that afford us the comforts. You know what I'm saying? Being an immigrant, being at the intersection of certain like forms of marginalization and oppression, right? But like most folks are not afforded that and I just don't. Or they do see it, right? And it's like, oh, this is just inevitable for empire. This is just what it costs. It doesn't need to. It never needed to. Oh my God. Hey, I just wanted us to be clear here. We want to be clear the work that is taking place.
Can you come with me to all of my events? Make sure people don't misunderstand.
Please, yeah? Please. Don't misconstrue. Don't, oh my God, the work on it. No, please.
The stakes are too high. Too high.
Yeah, absolutely.
Before I move into these next series of poems, I have a quote that comes in the book from Dion Brand's Map to the Door of No Return. And the quote is, "Black experience in any modern city or town in the Americas is a haunting. One enters a room and history follows. One enters a room and history precedes. History is already seated in the chair in the empty room when one arrives. Where one stands in a society seems always related to this historical experience." This poem I'm about to read is called Field Notes. I'm going to show it to you. There's a lot going on, but there is a center column of text that comes in the middle. And all of the center column of text is borrowed from a YouTube video called Heroes of Color, Episode 2, Gaspar Yanga, that is written and illustrated and produced by David Heredia. So all of the historical information about Yanga in this poem was written by David Heredia. Field Notes. As soon as I arrive in Mexico City, I am asked how long I have been growing my dreadlocks. My hair, twisted up Havana style, says nothing. I panic, mumble a while, and avoid eye contact. Known as the first liberator of the Americas, Gaspar Yanga led one of the most successful slave rebellions in the Americas. Yanga was among the many slaves brought over from West Africa and forced into working the Spanish sugar plantations in Mexico. My host mom is a wealthy white Mexicana. She asks if she can take my picture because her children are hippies. Later, I tell her mi papa es Afroamericano. She has never heard the word before. Should have said mayate. Around 1570, he led a slave revolt and escaped with a group of followers into the mountainous terrain surrounding Veracruz. There, Yanga and his people formed a settlement, which grew to some 550 people and eluded capture for nearly 30 years. My classmate says aloud, "I didn't even know Afro-Mexicanos existed." Our professor nods, supportive. The white-skinned girls in my class complain about being called güera. It's offensive to be named. Yanga and his people waged a campaign against Spanish colonial rule, raiding caravans that ran between Veracruz and Mexico City, carrying goods, foods, and other supplies. At the supermarket, I am asked, "Es tu cabello?" for the first time in my grandparents' country. Welcome home. I've started counting the number of times I am mistaken for someone from another Latin American country. Yanga's raids and the ongoing exodus of Black and Indigenous slaves to his community upset the Spanish plantation owners. The owners called on the colonial government to take action. The vendor at the pyramids wants to know if I am from Costa Rica. No, I'm your Black neighbor. Run. My professor, Wera, compares being called Wera to being called nigger, and I am the only one to correct her. In 1609, the Spanish governor sent a military force of 500 men to put an end to Yanga and his group. Opposing that force was Yanga's irregular army, armed with firearms, machetes, bows and arrows, and even stones. The exhibit on racism al Museo de la Ciudad de Mexico mentioned Black people 3 times. The clerk at the gas station stared at my face, curious. He leaned across the counter and asked, "Es mexicana?" When Yanga learned of the impending attack, he sent one of his Spanish prisoners to negotiate peace terms. The Spanish, however, had no interest in negotiation, and a brutal battle quickly ensued. My host mom says, "En Mexico no hay Black people." I point to myself, but she never looks me in the eyes. "Es tu cabello real. Tienes mucho. Qué increíble. ¿Son rastas o trenzas? ¿De dónde es? Es de África." Both sides suffered heavy casualties, but the Spanish governor was forced to respect Yanga's strength. Yanga and his survivors retreated higher up into the mountains, out of Spanish reach, and again flourished. I video chat with my best friend. She asks about being Black in Mexico, and when I cry, she does too. Every morning, I listen to Chance the Rapper's coloring book, hum to myself, we know, we got it. After many failed negotiations and military actions, the Spanish opted to negotiate in 1618. Under a treaty, Spain granted freedom to Yanga and his followers in exchange for an end to raids on Spanish caravans. One of my classmates from Oaxaca teaches me a phrase that means, I don't have to answer that. Sometimes I cannot tell if people switch to English because I'm American or because they're racist. In addition, the former slaves were given land, and Yanga and his family were recognized as rulers of the community. By 1630, the town of San Lorenzo de los Negros was born, the first free African settlement in the Americas. Sometimes I forget how to say, how much does it cost? Wait while the vendor looks at me, blank. I went to the aquario and a pufferfish drifted toward me, stared joyously until I left. In 1932, the town was renamed Yanga to honor the courageous man who represented hope and liberty to so many enslaved people. I learned about Yanga during my final week in Mexico. Alone, finally, with my kin, can't help but weep. I can't find an image of Yanga online. Instead, I try harder to love my own face, nose, lips, hair. I press my palm to the screen, then to my heart. Promise to look for him everywhere, even in the quiet. One of the things that happens when you are studying an archive of slavery is that you find there's so many missing pieces of information. One of those things is that, at least as far as I've been able to tell, there are no surviving images of Esteban or Yanga. This poem is called Why I Want to Know What Yanga Looked Like. If I had a photograph of Yanga, if one arrived in the mail from a friendly but weary postman, in a long, thick envelope sealed with spit that was spat between the gap in 2 clean teeth, because I think of Yanga as having a gap between his teeth. Not sure why, it just seems like it makes sense. Not a humongous gap, but a small one, a thin space between 2 yellow bones at the front of his mouth, the crack in a bell that makes the song sweeter. And when I speak about songs, I'm always speaking about freedom. A gap like that, where everything goes black for a minute, and then the lights come on, and suddenly what you are seeing is more beautiful because of the interruption. because the interruption becomes part of the thing itself. And suddenly, you can't imagine the two teeth, wide and high at the top of the mouth like sails, having ever existed without a dark spell in between them. Marker of an absence, skinny black pillar, little room holding everything I have lost since Yanga's escape, since the sieges on land and by foot, the opened door to 4 centuries of running and a fistful of secret languages I only speak in my dreams. If I looked at the photograph of Yanga and found all that, a litany of things feed from my contemporary memory, and Yanga had sealed the envelope with spit and a lick of aloe vera, then I'd frame the photograph and hang it in the center of my home. So every time I left, before locking the door, I'd check for Yanga, grinning at me with a gaze 4 centuries long, black streak in his smile, the 2 large teeth shining like sugar. There's a series of poems about and to Yanga in the book. This is one of the last ones that comes, and it's a letter to Yanga. Yanga, did you really agree to turn in runaways in exchange for freedom, your people's freedom? Were you a patriarch? I have no room to judge, no experience to understand yours exactly. I still love you. I just want to know. Did you have children? A wife? A husband? A gender? Or a few? In my knowledge of you, what has been imposed, invented? Yanga, I have been thinking about birth. Who was your mother? How many people loved and raised you? What did you call yourself? Was it you that birthed the people, or your wife? Were you a man, or something freer? I've been thinking about birth as the place we begin, but I want to begin with you. I think I do. What language did you speak, and who taught it to you? Did you like chocolate with hot peppers like Quince Duncan said? Or the way loving someone means you will always remember them, even if you forget their face? Teach me to be a person without a nation on the other side of enslavement. I will write to you always. Someone we cannot picture is writing to us now, asking for assistance. They are on the brink of an escape neither you nor I could see. They are ours, in the way we are each other's, in the way you were your people's. And they are bringing all of us with them into the forever universe where we are always free. I stopped saying I could never have imagined, because when I met you, it stopped being true.
Hmm.
I think I have 2 more poems. Oh. I don't know how many people here are familiar with Gloria Anzaldúa and her book Borderlands, The New Mestiza. If you're not, don't worry about it. You're not missing nothing. I don't recommend it. Quite anti-Black, okay? But this book has been a really foundational text for Chicano studies and Mexican American studies, and they will not let go of it, no matter how nicely you ask. And so I didn't really want to talk about Anzaldúa in this book. I just kind of wanted to dunk on Borderlands a little bit, and so there's a suite, there's a suite of poems called Borderlands Suite, which is not really about Anzaldúa, but is kind of like pushing back against a lot of the ideas that she advocated for that are very anti-Black, that have become integral to Mexican American identity. This is called Borderlands Suite. Names. Brown is my name. Brown was my father's name, and his before his, and his before his, and his before his. Before Brown was my name and my father's name, it was a white man's name. Brown is his name, not yours. Brown is the name of a slave owner. Brown is a color. Brown is the color of some of my family, not all. Brown is my name, not yours. Brown is the color I am no matter the season. I am brown, but I am not dark-skinned. Black is also my color. Black is also my allegiance. I am black, but I am not dark-skinned. Brown does not mean dark-skinned. Black power is my allegiance. Black is not my name, but it is my condition. Black people exist in every country. Black people exist in every country because of slavery, because of migration. Being Black is different than being brown. Brown is not specific. Brown does not mean indigenous. Mexican does not mean brown. I am proud to be Black. Black power inspired the brown berets, who were not all brown. Black power is fundamental. Mexican is not a race, so there is no such thing as brown power. What raza? Mestizaje means Mexico without Black people. Mexican is different from Mexican American. What do you mean? I am being perfectly clear. That's my dunk. And
I think
I'm not.
you would call that period.
You know, I'm into it. I'm into it. That's why there's a period at the end of the title. So don't forget it. You know what I mean? We are owed period.
I noticed that. I was like, that was intentional as fuck, and I love it. I'm here for it. I'll get a shirt with just the period from the title just on the front.
The period is the main character. We're clear, right?
Correct.
The period
Absolutely.
is the intention. The period is the intention. That's the whole. That's the whole book.
Come on.
Period.
It's a complete sentence. Come on.
Yes.
All right, y'all. This is my last poem, and then we can move into a little Q&A with folks from the audience. So if there are burning questions that folks have for me or for Sasha or Lois, after I read this poem, we can get into all that. This last poem is called Inhale, the Ceremony. And you've both heard this before. I take the hurtful poem to the reading, the one about Cortez or death, or how I am running out of language and there is so much left in the story to tell. And the room opens its skin to its bleeding heart, and I reach in, coaxing the flood. Someone else is reading, and the walls shimmer with my kin. They burst from the room's skirts, heads pooling at the surface, climb in rivers down the walls. I can't say their names, so I inhale. And everyone is here. Swirling tulips splashing at my feet, bearing sweet giggles and fresh bread, blades in their cheeks, weather for names. The room bends its crooked finger, pulls me close. The elders brought rosemary and know everything I am going to say. I fall into liquid, make wet every word. And nothing is lost. Nothing was ever lost. There was never any magic. There was never this body or its wound. There was only water and the stories we passed through it. Thank you.
I need some water. I'm just gonna have some water. Okay.
Lois, did you unmute yourself just to make that face?
Stressed. Everybody in the chat.
A few people commented on the book having weight and girth and heft, other words to just comment on the gravity, the magnitude. And I'm just touching my neighbors in the chat and agreeing. I'm touching and agreeing with my neighbors in the chat. Because
what does weight do if not add pressure?
Thank you, Lois.
Stress.
Yes.
Come on now. Come on now. Ariana Brown, my God.
Wow.
My God. Your ability to, and because I remember when you were doing all that archival research, right? To
Mm.
weave that into present day observations, it's incredibly powerful.
Thank you.
It's incredibly powerful. My God.
I feel like one of the things that I appreciate about at least everything that you shared with us today is that like the book has in the title, that I hope we can talk about that, but just in like the mood or like the tone or whatever, the underpinning of the book is like this surety that is also incredibly tender.
Mm.
You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And that's a really special thing to be able to like to wield at the same, two things that are special to be able to wield at the same time, you know. I just think that's really fucking powerful, and that's really, really beautiful as well.
Thank you, Sasha.
Tenderness for me, Sasha Banks also allows it to hold its own, not just complexity, but conflict. Because like in that conversation you were having with Yanga, you were asking really, like, you know, like, can you talk a little bit about the history that you uncovered that prompted those questions?
Yeah. So in the poem that's the like letter to Yanga, where I'm asking him a whole bunch of questions, the last Yanga poem that I read, um, literally that YouTube video that I talked about, where like I was kind of taking the text from that into this poem. It's like a 3-minute illustrated video on YouTube. One of my classmates during the Mexico City study abroad sent me the link to that video during the last week that I was there. And that is the most comprehensive amount of information I've ever been able to find out about Yanga from that little YouTube video. There are some documents written by Spaniards from the colonial period in Mexico where they talk about their encounters with Yanga, but they're written in colonial Spanish, right? I can barely understand like modern Spanish. So I've read some of those documents. I don't fully understand them. In terms of like finding resources in English that I can have access to, it's really just that like YouTube video that has all of that information there. But I was talking to a friend of mine, Alan Pelaez Lopez, who wrote the foreword to this book. And they talked about this Black Costa Rican writer named Quince Duncan, who like Alan was familiar with growing up. And Quince Duncan has a book of short stories called A Message from Rosa, an African diaspora novel. And in that book, he has a short story about Yanga. I don't remember how I learned this, but when I found out about it, I was like, I want to read that book. I want to read that short story about Yanga, how other Black Latin American writers are writing about him. And so I ordered the book. Luckily, it was translated into English. I was able to get a copy of it. And when I got it, I was so excited to see, you know, like to see what another writer was doing with this history, right? And I remember reading it and feeling surprised, I think, and disappointed because I had not considered, I did not think that that cis heteropatriarchy was going to show up as much in that story as much as it did. That Duncan spent a lot of, and Duncan is a celebrated, very like legendary figure in Black Latin American writing, right? He's had a very long and illustrious career. He's very well known, and he's very prolific. This was my first encounter with his work. And the way that he talked about Yanga was just sort of describing Yanga as a patriarch. He describes a lot of the sex that Yanga and his wife have. There's a lot about like about patriarchy and how that shapes understandings of manhood, but it's not a critique of it, it's just presented, you know. And I was like, I had been thinking about Yanga as this liberator, which he was, right? I had not thought a lot about gender and power as related to gender. And so then I had a lot of questions, right? Because I was also like, I don't know Quince Duncan or what kind of research he did to write that story, so I can't definitively say anything. But from what I know, for someone who lived so long ago, and Yanga was not Mexican, right? He was African and trafficked and brought to Mexico. This was not an Afro-Mexican person. He was African. I have no idea how he understood gender, or relationships, or sexuality, or queerness, or if there are even words for those kinds of things where he came from and in his worldview. And so I think with the Yanga poems, I was less interested in trying to write like biographical poems about Yanga because there's so much I don't know about him. The only thing I could do was ask questions. That was the only ethical thing I felt like I could do. And so then I just had a lot of them after that.
To Sasha's point, like tenderness allows for that line of inquiry, in my opinion. And that's just powerful. That is just powerful. My God. Yeesh.
Thank you for pointing that out, Lois, and for listening so closely.
Oh my God. Sasha, what else was coming up for you?
I mean, so many things that I just feel like I don't have a ton of language. There's a lot of feeling. Do you know what I mean? The second to last poem you read made me very emotional. So thank you for that. I think as long as I've known you, I've always been a fan of the way that you read poems. That is also very sure and very tender. So I feel like, I don't know, there's something about, really, I remember reading some of the Yanga poems that you had started when we had like that Google Doc a long time ago. And wasn't there one where, didn't you like make like a song? I don't know if I'm, yes. Okay. Did that make it in here?
It's the first
Yanga. Oh my God,
poem.
it did? Oh, good. I'm so glad. Y'all, Ariana wrote a song. So I just want to prepare y'all for that. Because you're going to cry like I did. You know, if you're a poet or you're a fan of poetry, you're going to cry. So just prepare yourself for that.
You know what, Sasha? I'm actually, so tomorrow night from 7 to 9 p.m. Central Time, when Jackie Germain is interviewing me here on YouTube, day 2 of the book launch events, I'm going to read all of the Yanga poems. So that first poem you're talking about, Yanga Sings Me to Sleep, is the first one in the series. And we're going to talk really deeply about those pieces.
Thank the Lord, because that's such a beautiful piece. I remember that. I feel like I haven't read that in maybe 4 years.
Because I've been working on it for so long, right?
I love it. I love it so much. But I don't know. I really appreciate your care for these like people in history that I feel like you take their humanity into account in a way that sometimes we don't when we're thinking about people in history. Do you know what I'm saying? Like we don't give them I guess it's really a very like white American sort of treatment of history or the people, historical figures, which is to just be, it's just to create them as like these archetypes that are just sort of placed within the narrative. Yeah. But I think your care is very different and separate from that because it makes room for their humanity as actual people who lived and breathed and had feelings and thoughts and bad days and like a life. And I feel like that is that tenderness sort of showing up once again in how you talk about really anybody that you care about, but with particular note to Yanga. I just really appreciate that. And I love that. I love your line of questioning. Everybody in the comments loves the, like, I still love you. I just want to know. You know what I mean? Like, I love that.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Sasha. So y'all are doing such close reads of this work. And I appreciate it so much because, again, I have been thinking about these for so long.
But Ariana, Sasha Banks, let's get even closer.
What are you trying to do, Lois?
Sasha Banks, so today I went to the museum and I was looking had such pale faces everywhere. Like there were so many images of white people. I felt disoriented. I was like, whoa. And a lot of them were also glorifying like known murderers. Like King, what's his name? Henry VIII he murdered multiple wives.
Jesus.
In addition to conquest and empire building, right? No, my question is, should that level of tenderness be extended to known perpetrators of violence for the sake of building empire, right? For the sake of conquest, right? So for example, when I'm thinking of this whole ass Spaniard coming through and being like, oh, is that a holy site? Bet, let me go ahead and build a big ass church on it, right? Should I be like, oh, well,
No. I don't know. This is like a very clear, like, I love all this ambiguity, Lois. Like, for me, the answer is very much like no.
For me, it's like, no,
right?
is it victim of like patriarchy and
stop? No, oh my God, the originators. Are you kidding me? They chose this life. What are you talking about? I think for me, where the ambiguity, a little bit of the ambiguity comes in, is thinking about like someone like Esteban, who like also was an African person enslaved and like trafficked and enslaved and brought to the New World. He was a scout for Spanish colonizers who were trying to colonize Florida. They got shipwrecked on the way there, ended up in Galveston, Texas, very far away, right? They didn't know what they were doing. And so they started out with like 200 men. There were 4 survivors. Esteban was one of those survivors of the shipwreck. They end up in Galveston, and from there they end up walking Texas and New Mexico. Esteban was enslaved by one of those men, Panfilo Narvaez. And Esteban was a scout, like an advanced scout. So he would travel several days ahead of the Spaniards to kind of track the land for them and negotiate with different indigenous groups that he interacted with, and let the Spaniards know whether or not they were friendly or hostile or which direction to go, things like that. For someone like Esteban, I feel like there's more ambiguity there, right? Because he was an active part of these colonization efforts in Texas and New Mexico, but he was enslaved. So we have no way of knowing how much agency he had in those kinds of acts. Do you know what I mean? Like he was literally doing the labor of empire building, but we don't know how much of that was his choice, because he was enslaved. So for me, that's where the ambiguity comes in. But for actual colonizers, no mercy, period.
Period, ever. Ariana, there's a couple of questions in the chat, and I'm sort of like catching them and copying and pasting them. But one person asked about the line where you say, "What do you mean? I am being perfectly clear." And they're asking, like, how do you deal with people taking your words in a direction that you didn't intend for them to go?
Hey, Jeremy, thank you for being here. I appreciate you so much. Another person that I've known for a very long time because of Slam. Yeah, thank you for noticing that. This happens all the time. I feel like people are taking my words in a direction I don't intend. By which I mean non-Black people, because people don't want to read, and then when they read, they don't want to listen, they don't want to hear what you're saying, so they decide what you mean. But I feel like, I mean, even for those of us, all of us, Sasha, Lois, Jeremy, a lot of folks who are here in the chat. Hey, Adam. A lot of us have been in slams before, and that once you get on stage, you can't control how the audience responds to a poem. They're going to think whatever they want. The judge is going to give it whatever kind of score they feel like giving it on that day. And that's it. It's a wrap, I think for me, what I've started doing is like using social media to be, hey, Lupita, Lois's dog. I've started using social media and talking a lot more about my work so that people are not only receiving the work, but they're also receiving my thoughts, their work. And I offer artist talks now when I go to virtual events for colleges and universities. And in the artist talks, I perform and I also contextualize my work. So that's what I've been trying to do, is doing a lot more contextualizing. That way, if people still misunderstand, I know it's their choice, but I did everything that I know how to do to let people know how to receive it. That's why there's a intense forward at the beginning of this book. So if you are unfamiliar with the histories I'm speaking about, it's in context for you, but yeah, at a certain point, it's just like, I can only do so much,
You know what's interesting, Ariana?
Yeah.
I've noticed a lot of white folk enjoy, at least like what I've been able to observe is like, they like it when folks take it anywhere. I feel like the whole entire Manil collection does not have like plaques to describe and further like elaborate the piece.
Interesting.
They just have like, oh, this is oil, in 1940 something. This was like pencil. It's like, and that's it. That's the whole amount of context you get. Like, I was like, bro, like, what? Why?
Lois said, I need a little bit more information. I need something to hold on to.
And I'm curious. It's like, do white folk not care? Like, how art is interpreted? Like,
I mean, that's a question for them. None of us are white, so I don't know if we can answer that for you for real.
Y'all are not
You're going to have to go outside and talk to some white people out there, because there ain't none in here. I'll tell you that.
Ariana said, I am not a subject expert. Okay.
You're going to have to do some field research.
On the flip side, though, especially like Black women, I've seen take very particular care in making sure their work is like, Octavia Butler did this in Bloodchild, and it blew my fucking mind. It's like, no, this whole entire short story is not about slavery. I just saw a bug, and it made me think about this story. Stop this.
Right.
I said,
right. Don't project.
You're doing too much.
Right. I respect.
And that's amazing to me. That's so amazing to me. There's a few more questions though on here. We can switch off. Is that okay with you, Social Basic?
Yeah.
What was the last one? From Eris, we have Ariana. How do you navigate myth making in your poetry with all the gaps in the archive?
Yeah, I think for me is I try not to think about it as myth making. When I think about writing, like especially the poems to and about Yanga, I'm not trying to invent a history of how Yanga came into the world. When I write about Yanga, I'm writing about my relationship with him. And so in the poems about Yanga in the book, there are moments where Yanga is speaking to me and I can imagine some of the things he's saying to me, but they're not often things about his life. They're mostly things about my life. Because I don't want to assume things that I do not know. I want to take a lot of care with that because, I feel like I have a very close and deep personal relationship with Yanga, but I also want to be respectful of the fact that there are limits to what I know for sure about him. And so in the poems, we are doing activities together, and I'm describing those activities that we're doing, having conversations. I'm telling him things, or I'm asking him questions. But I try not to think of it as myth making or like me trying to build like a story about Yanga, if that makes sense. Yeah. So I tried to be really intentional with that. Thank you for that question.
Let's see. So someone wants to know if you're going to do an audiobook for We Are Owed. I want the answer to be yes, but this is not my Q&A.
I mean, I think, if honestly, if I was making more money as a poet, I would. But part of the way that I make most of my money right now is through touring and doing shows. And so like if I make an audiobook of this book, schools have no real reason to book me for shows. And that is how I'm able to pay rent and eat and things like that. And so I would love at some point, to make an audiobook for We Are Owed, but the financials is not looking like that's a thing that's gonna happen. I need schools to book me for shows so I can eat. Period.
Fair point.
Okay. I think this is Adam Humphrey in the chat. I see you. What? Asking if you could hand deliver this book to any person, current day or in history, who would it be?
My father.
Hmm.
I didn't read any of the poems about my father in the book, but there are a few, not a lot, but a few. He's kind of this like looming presence in the book in a similar way that Yanga is in the text, I think. My father passed away a few months before I was born. The second poem in the book, A Quick Story, kind of talks about my own origin story, right? Because this book is very interested in origin stories, how we come to understand who we are, right? And how cis heteropatriarchy and nationalism and white supremacy inform all of those things. They're all wrapped up into our origin stories of how we understand ourselves. And so I kind of start the book with my origin story, how my parents met, how my father died, how I was born shortly after, and how that has shaped was one of the first ruptures for me in getting me to question nationalism. My parents met in the Air Force. My father died in a plane crash. And so the effect of that, right, was that I grew up without a father. And so for me, that was my first questioning of like, what is my relationship to this country? What is the list of things it has taken from me? And what do I want my relationship with this country and to other people who have been harmed by this country's existence to be? Yeah, so I would love for my father to see this.
So let's see. Jasmine Bell has a question. What has writing this book done for you personally, or what has it brought to you? What have you learned? Were there any lessons or any losses? I'm sorry.
Hey, Jazz. Thank you for being here. I think writing this book has forced me to be a lot more specific with my language. I think I was talking to Jackie about this on the phone the other day. We were talking about the interview for tomorrow. And I was talking about how people like use the phrase Black and brown when they're talking about like Black communities and Latinx communities. And I think thinking about phrases like that, right, where I sort of understand the utility of them in certain moments, but I also understand after kind of going through this history what some of the limitations are. So I think it's forced me to study and to be in relationship with and learn from Black Latin American people currently living in Latin America and the Caribbean, because they, I feel like, have been most vocal about what the limits of Mexican nationalism are and Mexican American nationalism are. The kind of way that non-Black Mexican Americans in the U.S. have at many times in history legally advocated to be classified as white by the law and were, right, so that they would not be treated like Black people in the U.S. And when a lot of these non-Black Mexican Americans go back to Mexico or to Latin America, they are recognized as part of the ruling class, right? It's Black people in these countries that are sort of on the that are at the bottom of the racial hierarchy. And so I think kind of one thing that this book has done is made me think a lot more deeply about how do I understand myself? What is my own relationship to Mexicanness, to Mexican Americanness? That's, learning that that's not something I'm proud of, right? And really working harder to be in relation to Black people still living and existing in these countries today. Yeah.
That's solid. There's a question here by K. Rod. What was your favorite, most important piece or what is your favorite / most important piece or source of material that you came across while writing this book?
It was probably the Yanga video. I'm gonna see if I can post it here in the chat for anyone who wants to watch it. It's really short. Like I said, it's 3 minutes long. The length of the slam poem. I'm going to post that here in the chat for anyone who wants to see it. I highly recommend it. And David Heredia is great and does a lot of other videos on lesser known heroes of throughout the Black diaspora. So yeah, definitely check out his work.
Daniela said, would you want to have your poetry translated into Spanish?
Some of it already is. So some of the poems from my last chapbook, Sana Sana, there's 10 of them that are available in Spanish. I think it's like a $1 download on my website. I am working on getting this translated into Spanish. It's like an active goal of mine. I'm trying to figure out the process of doing that right now because as there are many different types of English dialects, there are many different types of Spanish dialects, and there is a particular kind of person who speaks a particular kind of Spanish that I want this to be translated into and to be available in Latin America and the Caribbean. So it's something I'm working on. So if you, I don't know, if you have questions about that or you have connections, contact me. We'll figure it out. I think that's all the questions so far, but I just want to check in with you both, Lois and Sasha, to see how you're feeling. Any thoughts you're having? I also know it's.
I have a question. I really am curious, like, what is the thing that you feel like, I guess, okay, so for the first question I'll ask you is, what do you feel the most proud of about the book itself?
I think how clear it is. It's funny that you mentioned that there's a surety, Sasha. I was just thinking about you saying that earlier because I think like I wanted the critique to feel sure. But I think there's also some poems in the book where I'm kind of working through my understanding of a thing, where like it's like I thought this thing before, and now that I've had this experience or that I've seen this thing, now I think differently. And so I wanted there to be some of that in there too. Here's the other part, which is maybe lends itself to the tenderness that both of you were speaking about. I feel like a trend that I noticed in my writing after being in slam for so long was that like every time I came to the page, I needed to feel like what I was saying was like the coolest thing ever. Like, I don't know, I feel like I was doing some posturing, where I was like, like I'm, whatever. Exactly. Looks, all of those, all of those things, right? Correct. I kept having that impulse when I sat down to write. And when I was working on this book, I really had to be confronted with how much I did not know. Do you know what I mean? So I feel like there was like some humbling that happened. And I had to sit with that. I had to sit with what I did not know. And I had to figure out a different way of writing into these things if I was not 100% sure, if I was not the coolest person in the room, if I had a relationship to people who experience a different kind of oppression than I do. How do I responsibly engage with their histories, right? Because I didn't want to say that my experience of Blackness and Esteban or Yanga's experience of Blackness is the same, because it's not. They were enslaved. They lived in a colonial period.
Right.
We have very different lives. What I was trying to do is to say that our experiences are related to one another, that we are in the same lineage with one another. And to kind of see what comes of that. If I taught myself, if I figured out how to tend to that relationship, how does that change what the writing is?
Diving even deeper on the notion of clarity, right? And being so sure. It's not clarity in knowing, but in your observation that is most captivating in this book. And Sasha Banks, you do that too, man.
That's true. That's true.
one of the really amazing things that happened when I first realized that, oh, poetry doesn't need to be flash. It can be an opportunity for observation. It changed the game. It changed
Mhm.
the game.
Mm.
Every single poem that has
Yeah.
ever moved me has looked at either a simple moment or a complex moment
Mhm.
or like history or has looked at the mundane and the violent and the intimate in this clear manner with very, very sober eyes.
Mhm. Mhm.
And,
Yeah.
and then articulated it. It just, I
Yeah.
swear, the two of you, hey,
But I feel that though, because I think part of also what you're talking about, Lois, is like pushing against the idea of like romanticizing something, you know, which
Right.
I think is very easy to do, especially like coming from slam, you know, or I think sometimes even the way that people talk about our like racial and ethnic identities, there can be a lot of like essentializing, a lot of romanticizing. So it's like when you take a step back and you say, I'm going to approach this from a very clear, like observer perspective, right? What is happening here? What is
come on.
going on? Then you get to question what people's investments in that romanticizing are, right? What does that do, right? Who does it, at whose expense, right? All of those questions sort of come into mind and you're able to, yeah, have a different kind of conversation.
And I would argue now
Mhm.
is calls for a certain level of sobriety and clarity in the work then, and it's always been urgent, but my God,
Are you
we
saying
have
now more than ever?
I don't want to do that. I don't want
We still love you. We just
it's
want to know.
Right. We also love you. We just want to know.
always called for it, but my God, if I could call my friends, into, because it's not just what is my blackness doing, right?
Mm.
It's how are we observing our blackness at the intersection of a very violent state?
Yes. Yes.
For the fuck's sake, our oceans are on fire, but
Mhm.
we are obsessed with the function of and I don't want to dismiss the importance of identity and understanding ourselves, but like, yo, can we look at the role we are playing in the violence of it all and building it, right?
Yeah.
Um, yeah, like last year when we were just watching this empire, kind of like, we took a little peek. We took a little peek in the fuckery. from thousands of people literally being in the streets to police stations being burnt down to supply chains crumbling to all this, like there is a certain kind of urgency and sobriety that is calling us, when it comes to this work, that and I look to the both of y'all every single time. I feel like, you know what? Why don't you make it just a little bit more, like the flash? It's like, no, bitch, the work.
I feel that.
God, yeah, no, it's powerful. It's powerful stuff, man.
Mhm, mhm. You know, I don't know, this conversation makes me miss coaching. I miss coaching so much because I feel like you get to have these conversations, like especially with youth poets, right? Who are like coming into writing, sort of like for the first time and are trying to figure out, okay, how are my politics going to shape the kinds of things that I write? What am I about? What do I want to be about? What do I want my poems to say about me and how I see the world? I miss like the opportunity of kind of getting to, provide a little bit of a guidance here and there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Soon,
There's
maybe.
a couple of other questions here.
Hmm.
It was like maybe about 3 or 4 questions. Iris wants to know what your favorite flower is.
You're not slick, Eris. No, I appreciate you. I don't know if I have a favorite flower. I have not been given flowers a lot in life. I don't know what a lot of them look like. I'm Googling lilies right now to see what they look like. Maybe not lilies. daisies, maybe.
Argue, Ariana, less what they look like and what they mean. Huh?
Okay, all right. Do you have something you would like to share, Lloyd?
So something I recently realized.
Uh-huh.
Okay, not only are certain like flowers have meanings, but also like certain herbs. Like you can put herbs in a bundle or whatever, and it has a meaning.
Mhm.
So yeah, like, oh, these flowers mean, joy will come into your house, or the sun would come in your house, like sunflowers, for example, right? Or and this other one is like, oh, for grieving. I'm like, okay, but like, let's relax, like, don't bring sunlight into my house.
Oh my
Um,
Lord.
and so yeah, like they got little meanings in there. So those are the
Okay.
ones. That's what you should look for.
So talk to somebody who know what they're doing.
Yeah.
That's what you're saying. I see. Well, I do like white flowers. I'll say that. I like white flowers. That's it. Okay. Next question. Rachel Amaya, who is my greatest poetic influence? Ebony Stewart. Period.
Period.
I'm gonna put her name in the chat because if you are not familiar, you should get familiar.
Immediately.
Immediately.
Expeditiously.
Ebony is too out here to not know what's going on. Ebony's too out here for you to not like just I mean, I'm not gonna judge anybody who's not familiar with Ebony now, but I will judge you by like next Thursday at this time if you're still unaware.
Because then it's choice, right?
Because then it's listen, you're already telling me what time it is. Don't fuck around, y'all. Fuck around and find out, okay?
Your typing fingers could not move quickly enough to know who this human being is.
Period.
With haste.
With haste. Yeah.
For anyone who does not know, there's a lot of Texas folks in the building tonight, so all of us know Ebony Stewart is such a pillar in the Texas poetry community, and I do mean Texas because she's from Baytown, Houston area. She was in Austin for a minute, but name a Texas poet who has not been coached or influenced or lost a slam to Ebony Stewart. You can't do it. It's not possible.
Shout out to all the people who had the honor to lose to Ebony Stewart in the house.
I'm gonna tell you said that. She gonna laugh at that. Oh my God. Yeah, Ebony was
there's enough of us.
right. Yeah, we should have a yeah. Anyway.
I lost to Ebony Stewart. Mm-hmm.
I lost to Ebony Stewart right on t-shirt. In honor. Yeah, Ebony was one of my very first coaches when I was 17, 18 years old, over 10, 11 years ago. Yeah, fantastic. Okay, we have a few more questions. We're going to maybe try to answer them before time goes out. Angelica Miller, how or in what ways does your practice of curanderismo help you in navigating past the limits of archival materials? Yeah, y'all are doing such close readings of my work and showing up. I appreciate that. Yeah, so I think there's a lot of sadness that comes with like running into the limits of the archives. And so I think for me, part of practicing curanderismo is like being able to still trust that I can have a relationship with people like Esteban and Yanga, even though there are facts about them that I will not know, right? So like kind of being able to lean into it's not necessarily worship. It's maybe a little bit of praise, but definitely like kinship, I think is the word. Like being able to lean into that kinship and trust that that link, as long as I keep feeding it, will be there. So I don't need to know what Yanga looked like. I would very much like to, but I don't need it in order to have a relationship with him. I think that's what it's helped me do.
I think there's one more, maybe.
Is that on me? Hold on.
from Vanessa.
Did we answer? I am. There's a question here on. They said that they're stunned at the beautiful intersection, in this intersections in this book. Curious how you arrived there.
I saw this question and I truly do not know what it's asking. So Vanessa, if you would like to restate in the next few minutes, please let us know. But I did want to respond to Daniela, who offered to connect me with a literary translator by word of mouth. I'm looking for specifically a Black translator from the Costa Chica region of Mexico. So if you know someone, that would be great. I know that's also very specific. So I'm not in a rush. I just want to make sure that it's done correctly, is the reason. But yeah, I would love to get in touch. If you go to my website, arianabrown.com, there is a contact form, and we can get in touch that way through email, and I would love to do that. Thank you, by the way. Is that it? Did we get all the questions?
Oh, Joy. Yes, we can absolutely. So Joy and I have talked about previously, we've talked about doing like this all Black women, Black femme reading in Texas. And we talked about this last year, I think. And then it just, other things are going on. Joy's book, Horsepower, by the way, for anybody who's also
fantastic,
not familiar immediately, with haste, as Lois has already with haste, Horsepower, Joy Priest. Joy's book really just took off last year, and so Joy had a really full plate. But we will revisit this because I just feel like it's so important. And so, Joy, the answer is yes, we can absolutely do this. And yeah, I'd be happy to figure out how to put that all together. No, Joy, no. Well, also yes, but yes, it's about us. Okay, it's about
we form the we,
because we are owed. All of us, we are
collectively.
Collectively.
Hey, by the way, if you all would like to also support a local bookstore and order the books through a local bookstore here in Houston, y'all should go to Brazos. I definitely got Horsepower there from today. And so if you hit them up and it's like, hey, I'm actually looking for the author Sasha Banks. Can y'all make that work? They'll make it work. I'm looking for Ariana Brown. They actually did have your old book, Ariana, at the bookstore last time I went there. So go over there. Go over there and get your life.
Yeah.
Expeditiously.
It's
the pause before expeditiously for me. It's like I think Lois is done talking expeditiously. Oh my God. I want to thank you both so much. I know you said I'm not supposed to thank you, but I'm going to anyway, because I appreciate you both so much. Your writing, your presence in my life, everything I have learned from being near you and witnessing you and all that you do. And I also want to thank everyone who came tonight. Please come tomorrow. We're doing an interview, myself and Jackie Germain, who we've mentioned a few times today. She's the GOAT. She's dope. Fantastic journalist, poet, thinker, organizer. She's going to be interviewing me tomorrow from 7 to 9 p.m. I posted the link in the chat. It is free. It will be on YouTube Live. You can, comment with us in the same time, 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. Central Time. And that will be the last launch event for this book. It's just today and tomorrow. This video of this reading will stay online for a week, and then it will be taken down because, as I mentioned, I got to get booked for shows. You know what I'm saying? So, but the interview will stay up online indefinitely. So Jackie is severe with it. Okay, she don't come to play. So please come through tomorrow. You can still order your copy of We Are Owed if you have not done so yet. The link is in the chat. The link is also in the description box. please follow Sasha's work and support her online. Lois does not want to be perceived, so just enjoy their presence tonight. And they will see you around town if they feel like it. Any last thoughts before we dip?
Ariana, I just want to say, man, I'm so happy for you. You know what I'm saying? We love you so, so much.
I love you so much.
Like,
There's just not even enough language. It's just, it's sad.
I'm like, and I am
having a seizure.
And I'm so I can speak very firmly for everyone here in the audience that you are a gift to us all, and we cherish you so deeply for everything you are and everything you give to us in the form of your work. So I'm so happy that we get to be in the same realm, in the same time. What a miracle! What?
Wow.
Right? Did you think about that, Sasha Banks?
I did, and it's too much. It's like thinking about space. You know what I'm saying? It's just it's too much. It's overwhelming.
So shout out to you. Congratulations once again. And yeah, thank you so much for inviting us to celebrate you.
I feel the total same way about y'all. You have no idea. I love you both. Thank you to everybody for sticking with us this long. Hopefully we'll see you tomorrow. Y'all take care and have a good night.
Bye.
Bye.